for School Strike for Climate New Zealand. I've been really excited about this. I'm sure everybody watching has heard of Greta Thunberg's School Strike for Climate, and we are going to be talking to some of the representatives for School Strike for Climate New Zealand, and they are a movement of Greta Thunberg strikes in Europe, and they are striking from school to tell their politicians to take their future seriously and treat climate change for what it is, a crisis. So whenever you guys are ready, you are welcome to take yourself off of mute and put yourself on video and go for it.
Hi.
Kia ora. Yeah, so kia ora. We are School Strike for Climate New Zealand. Yeah. So my name is Ashley. Ko Ashley toku ingoa.
I'm Tilly, ko Tilly toku ingoa.
I'm Thea, ko Thea toku ingoa. And we're all from different places in New Zealand too, so we cover a range of geographies within our wee country.
But we're all from the South Island, which, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
Do our introduction things.
Yep. So I'm just getting something up on my laptop. Sorry guys, super unprepared. Anyway, so we are School Strike for Climate New Zealand, as I said before. So we are a movement that comes off Fridays of the Future. We are basically, our group is mostly people under 17, 18, apart from our amazing mentors that we have that have been working with us this year and last year. We work to bring awareness to climate change and lots of other environmental issues as well. Yeah, so basically we have held big events like 1 September last year when we had our biggest amount of people go ever, and it was super fun. We've been a part of the process of things like the Zero Carbon Bill here in New Zealand, which essentially just is going towards making New Zealand emission free in 2050, which was super awesome. As well as being a part of loads of different projects and stuff like that.
As far as personal tidbits go, so I live in Dunedin, which is on the South Island on the coast. Except I grew up on a sailboat, so I grew up on the sea, which is why I'm super excited to be here, because obviously that's a really key part of my identity, and it was really important and motivating me to be passionate about the world and etc. So I'm super happy to be here. And in growing up traveling, while I now live in Dunedin in a constant place, growing up traveling really, it shaped my view on the world, because everywhere was always new. There was always a new set of flora and a new set of fauna, and new sea colors too, because the water is actually a different color everywhere you are. So in the Torres Strait above Australia and below Papua New Guinea, it's this really iridescent, bright, light blue. It's just amazing. Whereas in the Indian Ocean, it's this really deep, dark blue. And so that kind of motivated me to finally, when I'm living in a house, as of fairly recently, in a consistent place, that motivated me to get involved in School Strike for Climate and to instigate changes in a home where I'm living permanently.
Yeah, so I'm 16, I'm still in school, and I'm part of School Strike for Climate New Zealand. I've grown up in the South Island, surrounded by water. New Zealand, I guess, being water locked, you're always near the beach, and you're always grown up to just appreciate nature that's around us, and like having forests and rivers and everything really close by, really like made me aware of all this beautiful nature that we're surrounded with and how important it is and how much we need to protect it. So that's kind of my motivation for striking and raising my voice to initiate change. Yeah.
Yeah, I think being a New Zealander is a really something that motivates a lot more people. A lot of the time I've been on international calls where people have been like, oh, look, New Zealand has lots of cool stuff, and I'm like, yeah. It's I guess it's just kind of being in kind of an island nation, I guess, and being locked by water, in a way is having not being too far from the coast or not being too far from the water's edge really motivates people. And even just being such a small little country that, I mean, our main industry is farming, so we do really have to take care of our environment a lot. And then there's also the kind of cultural side here where we see environment being like a tonga, which means like a gift or something very special in Māori, which is the people that originate from New Zealand, the Māori people. Yeah, it's very special to them, and we have to take care of that in a cultural way as well as just in a general way.
And I remember being in primary school, and it was kind of integrated where I think a few times a year we would go around and pick up litter, like all these little 5-year-olds wandering around the beach, picking up litter. And I feel in a lot of ways, like, we're very fortunate to be such a small country that where the majority of people kind of really look at the land as like under our guardianship rather than under our ownership. So I feel really lucky to be, I don't know, a part of this. At the same time though, like I guess everywhere in the world, and like it will always be, there is always a need for change, which is kind of the basis of School Strike for Climate, which is pushing for that change. Because while we need to acknowledge the good things that exist and the good things that we have, you can always do better.
Yeah, and I guess it goes without, like,
yeah, definitely agree.
Like the image that we promote is like being clean, green New Zealand. So we'll like embrace that kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I would firstly talk about the rest of our session. So for the rest of the session, it's basically just going to be us talking. So I hope you don't get too used to our voices, guys. And we also have some other youth coming on who aren't involved with our organisation to share their views, because we do realise that all of us being from School Strike may have a little bit of bias to how great School Strike is. But yeah, so we do have a question I saw as well. And the question is, how do you feel when you're in the ocean or in nature?
Should we all take turns at answering it?
Yep.
Do you want to go first, Tilly?
Sure. I guess I've always like had this real strong connection with nature, and I think especially like when you're somewhere really beautiful, you just appreciate like the whole beauty of where you are, and you just really it makes it so like you have this connection with it. Does that make sense? Kind of like I really enjoy being in nature. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. And I love exploring new places that I haven't been, and especially like exploring within New Zealand, because you're just discovering more parts of our beautiful country. Yes. Okay. Who wants to go next?
I can.
Oh.
I think. Oh, you can go if you want.
No, that's all right. You go ahead.
I think growing up in New Zealand definitely helps that connection to nature that was talking about, we brought up kind of from a very young age to always be outside in nature, to always be around nature. It is definitely, it's implemented in like our curriculums for sure. Like all our field trips are to the beach. I don't sit like or like out to a bushwalk or something. It really just is like a part of being a New Zealander, is being in connection with nature and knowing about around New Zealand. If you're not like an environment like us, you have all the like, you know, all the granddads that go like hunting and stuff. There's still got a connection to nature, even though it's different to our connection. It's still a connection to nature. Is like a whole New Zealand thing. Personally, I absolutely love like the beach. It is my place that I go. If I need a break from like everything else, you just go to the beach. And I think that's something that a lot of New Zealanders will relate to, just being able to go to the beach whenever you want, being able to go on a bushwalk. Like, who needs gyms when you have the bushwalks that we have in New Zealand? We have some really amazing, great scenic places. No matter what city you're in, there's always something natural just like down the road. And I think that's really what creates really personal feels. And just on nature as a whole, anywhere in the world, is just a really kind of peaceful, like nice place. It just kind of settles you, in my opinion. Even like around the ocean as well, it's just really, even though it can probably be like, nature in the ocean can be quite like stormy and stuff like that, it is just really peaceful to be near or in.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And when I'm out either in the middle of the sea or like just lying on the grass, I feel both really, 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 really small and very big all at once. Like I'm a piece of material and it's all frayed, and you can't really tell where one thing ends and then the other begins. And just all the possibilities just kind of float in my mind and then out of my mind, and it just is so fluid. It really encourages some kind of inspiration connection. You feel, or at least I don't know, I feel like I'm kind of touching everything at once, but also quite disconnected, but in a very beautiful, spacey way, I guess. And as well, like I think I read somewhere that digging releases endorphins, which is why little kids will like dig in the dirt. And I never really grew out of that, the digging in the dirt. So when I'm sad, you can routinely find me outside digging in the dirt. Just because I find the feeling of the soil underneath my fingers so appealing, I guess. And so full of life. And I guess I just want to preserve that. And we need to fight for that. And I think that's something worth experiencing, and something that I want, I don't know, my kids, if I have kids and grandkids and future generations to experience and to know, because it's such a fundamental part of who I am. Yeah, thank you for the question.
Yeah, that was an awesome question. We have another one. So our next question is, do you feel that this connection is the primary reason for wanting to protect and conserve it, or at least respect it? Who wants to go first?
I can.
Go. Sorry.
Yeah, I definitely feel like growing up, being exposed to all like the rivers and the beaches and the forests, but then as I get older, realizing that this isn't the case everywhere. Like, not all rivers are as clean as my closest river. Not all our beaches are non-polluted and everything. Yeah, so that definitely motivates me to want to I guess help ensure that they're all protected and conserved and respected. Yeah, just realizing that not everything is perfect and that needs to continue being done. Yeah.
I don't know where Ash has gone. On my screen, she's not there anymore, so I'll just hop in here. Oh, there you are. I think that this connection that is felt is relevant to why I feel a strong urge to protect and conserve the environment and nature and this existence, kind of like as I know it, this connection to the earth. But I kind of think there are other aspects too. There's just like a want to keep this preserved, not just for the connection that I feel, because that's kind of that is probably a primary reason, but probably not the only one. But also this want to this knowledge that while this is very much our world, it's not only ours, and this knowledge that because of the immense amount of power humanity's taken on for ourselves and in our societies, we are making all the decisions that we make impact almost every other species in the earth, on the earth. So I feel like it's both at once. And I've heard people say that you can't empathize with numbers. I don't know whether I empathize with the very frightening, very staggering numbers, but they definitely impact me in the fear category. What do you think, Ash?
I think the connection definitely has something to do with it. That obviously in New Zealand, with the connection feeling and with the kind of cultural feeling of protecting it as well. Like for myself, I'm very involved with the multicultural, so that kind of feeling is like, oh, I've got to protect it for that reason as well. But I think it's just also the kind of values of it, I guess. When it comes right down to it, I think people's values, like people who do environmental activism, use it quite across the board. Like I know, like we all kind of have value and all that kind of stuff. I would also say I've been doing a lot of stuff from when I was little, going on different courses and stuff like that, and just seeing kind of the power of nature, I think is also very scary and makes you want to kind of like protect and like take care of it, kind of what in the way of like, oh, we don't want it.
Oh, Ash, you're muted.
Am I? Great. Yeah. Did you guys hear anything I said?
Most of it.
Okay. Good. Yeah, so I just think for myself, it's not, it is a primary reason, but it's not what comes to my head when I think of why I'm a part of school strike. I think it's just to like it's just to kind of make a change, to make it aware of problems, to kind of just protect the environment as a whole. I don't really think of the connection when I do it, but I guess it probably is a very subconscious region. I guess I've never thought of it like that. Yeah.
Coming back briefly to the respect aspect of this though, is I think that respect is needed in every relationship, and we need to acknowledge the relationship between humanity and the earth, and then other species too. In building cities and houses, we've kind of separated humans from every other living thing in a way. But there's still a relationship there that needs to be respected. And I think every relationship has to involve respect. And when you don't have respect, that's when you end up with great problems of overusing and of abusing something. And so for me, that level of respect is always on my mind, and advocating for having a respectful and healthy relationship kind of in every facet of my life, but especially like this connection to the earth, the dirt, the sea, and because it's something that I think has been lacking in certain societies, especially in recent years. So I think advocating for that level of respect will then in turn lead to further love and further change that needs to be seen in order to reach a healthy climate, healthy, happy planet. I don't know whether either of you guys want to touch more on the respect thing.
I definitely agree with everything that you've just said. I think, and that also plays so much into the cultural side of things, like with Māori really respecting and everyone respecting the earth. I don't think we'd have as many problems as we do now.
Yeah, I think respect plays a huge part of it. Even that kind of connects it to so many other groups as well. Like, you'll just kind of, everybody just in our group respects nature, and I think that that's really what makes it run. That's really what will fuel activism, is the fact that the people who kind of come against us, at least for our group, they don't respect nature in a kind of sense. Like, they might respect it in one sense, but they respect it in a different sense. They might respect it in an economic sense, where like, oh, nature can make us money, where we see it as like, we need to respect this because it's important to have. It's like our earth, our planet, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, respect really fuels school strike, I think, but it also fuels I think it really fuels personal activism, because without having that respect for the environment or the ocean or nature or the planet, nobody would be doing any of this. So I think it's kind of really one of the fundamental things of like our kind of activism, personal activism, of just caring, I guess.
And then with respect and this care, you get as well, like a side effect from that is you get this more sustainable approach to doing things. And you start thinking about the way you treat the whatever the relationship is, the relationship to the land, or even relationship to people. I feel like it's applicable in all these different scenarios. With respect, then you get longevity, and you're thinking with longevity in mind. And so rather than just thinking of the present, you're thinking about, well, in 50 years, in 100 years, or even in 5 years, like you're thinking with a little bit more time in your mind. And that, I think, really leads to healthier systems, healthier environments, healthier mindsets. I do think in a way, like, respect is really key. And I don't know, were you guys taught respect in primary school?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like a huge respect we kind of learn to respect on so many different levels. I think, so there would be, the level for people, the level for like your teachers, the level for the environment. I think it wasn't even just like the normal environment, like it wasn't even just like the environment as a whole. It was the environment that you're directly in. So pick up the rubbish in your classroom, pick up the rubbish that you like around where you sit, as well as kind of trying to take care of the environment of like all around the world, but also your direct environment. And that was considered respect, which I think is super cool.
No, I agree with that. And those values that I at least was taught by my family members, but also then I had a few really, really wonderful teachers when I was really little. And that level of respect, I think, is really, I don't know, it's really important, has kind of carried me. We have another question from Nicola. What's the most challenging aspect in being a part of a student-led movement such as School Strike for Climate?
Oh, I could talk so much on this. I could talk so much on this. The most challenging aspects, well, there is plenty. So we're grassroots movement. So we kind of started very small, and then it built up from there. I think the biggest issue has been obvious pushback we've gotten from people who either don't believe climate change exists or just don't agree with us. You know, I always love the question, why do you do it on a Friday? It's the best question, the most frequent question you get asked as a school striker. Yeah, I think it's the pushback from people who don't agree, and you're always going to get that, so it's never going to be like fixed. But yes, that's probably the biggest issue, and also being kids itself, or kids I guess, being students or people under 18 is with this group, because obviously we see that some people don't, I guess, respect us. They just like, oh, you haven't had the same life experiences as us, you're younger than us, you're not even out of school yet, like you're all that kind of thing. We are educated. Obviously we wouldn't go out and speak on a topic if we weren't educated about it, and we educate in a way that we try and learn from so many different things. We take in feedback. I think school strike's really good at taking this kind of criticism, I guess, bringing it in and then just turning into like, okay, we'll work on that, instead of saying like, nah. But yeah, I struggles students and ourselves, which is something that we can't really change. So, but I have seen it kind of change personally in the way that when it started, students were a lot less respected. There was so much like bad media going around about all these movements, and now it's kind of like so much more positive. We've had so many good things come out of it. In New Zealand, at least, our government has listened to us so much and has helped, and we've worked with them, which I think is super cool. And there's less people pushing back now. It's becoming more of an issue that's seen as something that is an issue, instead of something that people are just denying. Loads of businesses are starting to change. We're definitely seeing
One
that, which
thing
I
else.
think is awesome. Here you go.
Sorry, I dropped out and I thought you'd finish. One thing else I'll say on the education front, though, is that I think a significant thing is that, of course, we're always learning as well. And more, my own personal belief is that being educated in specific topics is one thing, and it's really, really useful. But also being educated in how to further educate yourself is really significant, and I think that's something that makes our movement particularly I know that I'm really excited about our movement about, because it's also this idea of, well, we're using the most up-to-date knowledge that we can find and adapting with it and going with it, and I think that's really key. Sorry, you can continue. I just want to add that.
Can I speak to this as well?
No, yeah, I definitely agree. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the platform that it just gives youth to share their views and their knowledge and everything is just so powerful. I joined School Strike, I had no kind of output for this passion that I had, and then joining School Strike, it just gave me this platform where I was like having discussions with all these people that had the same passion for the environment as me, and were wanting to make a change. And I think it puts you up on that level where you can share how you feel about something, and even if you're not fully educated, you can learn more and things. Yeah.
Completely agree with that. And in the chat, yeah, I think there's a lot of symbolism involved in having these on Fridays, because of the thank goodness it's Friday. For me, I go thanks goodness it's Monday, but I realize that I'm a minority there. But yeah, the thank goodness it's Friday, as well as then it's Friday's the typical night where that's associated with going out and partying and having fun and all of these like activities that I guess some would deem frivolous, and some people think that that's kind of what youth do. So also in having it on a Friday, we're kind of contradicting that and being like, well, this is actually really important, and this time that you think we use for partying or I don't know, having picnics, it's actually more important that we be doing this.
Yeah, like that we're willing to give up our time because we actually care and we're out there raising our voices because we want change.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Something I've seen so much when it comes to that interview question is people are like, yeah, but why? And my answer every time is like, well, it holds more power. Like, people think that loads of students are coming to get out of school. No, it's not that easy, especially when you look at the type, like the likes of us or people who coordinate it. It's really not that easy to just go along on the day. There's so many things that you need to look into. Awareness is to take our own, and again, this is our time. I mean, it's our education that we are willingly giving up because we believe in it. Nobody, unless we were blocking or something. Yeah, I think it's just it's really just to make people listen, and we are still giving up our own time. We try not to disrupt the community when we do our strikes. We honestly just trying to be passionate about this issue and fix it, I guess. And I think it really shows the power of youth and the power of youth's voices when so many come along on these days. Yeah.
And speaking of, I think we've got two other people trying to join at this point in time. Do you see them? Did you hear that?
Yes. We have 2 other youth that are now going to join us.
Because while we are the coordinators, our movement is really only the things that we coordinate really only means as much as the people who come. And so it'd be kind of, I don't know, I think it's kind of neat to have people who are not officially part of the school strike coordinating team on here, because it's really them that are making the most change. It's their numbers, it's their support, and it's their believing in the change we are fighting for.
Yeah, and we're all about lifting up people's voices and creating a platform where anyone can share. Well, that when you're passionate about it, your voices can be heard.
Do you guys want to introduce yourself, kind of talk a little bit about what you guys do in your communities and stuff?
Should I start talking?
Go for it. Thank you very much for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks. So my name is Nora Piker and I live in Dunedin, and I'm in year 10 and go to Columba College and in the Dunedin Youth Council. And I'm very passionate about the environment and reducing the climate change and global warming. At the moment, I'm the chair of a subcommittee in the DYC where we're going to do for Plastic Free July to help reduce how much waste we use and the plastics to help the environment. And I think also what's very important is when we do protests and things to also make a change and to plant trees and to pick up rubbish from beaches. And it's mainly what we do behind the scenes that's the most important to help the environment. Yeah.
Awesome. No, I agree. There's a lot of behind the scenes work that gets done before any of the results start showing up. And how about you, Logie?
Hello. So yeah, as you heard, my name is Logie. I was asked by Yana to come on here yesterday, but in regards to climate change, I'm a person who's really passionate about the inequality regarding climate change, whether it's the inequality and how the people who are responsible for the greenhouse gas emissions are not as affected as, say, third world countries, and people who may be low class or middle class are affected. And yes, I'm really passionate about the inequality in climate change and how important it is to acknowledge that there is a problem, and how the media just portrays climate change, and how we are given it's projected that we as people, like, we put out as much as much greenhouse gas emissions and have a really big contribution, when there's inequality in that as well. So yeah, I'm really passionate about raising awareness for that and talking about that.
Well, just coming off of that, what are changes that you guys would want to see?
It would be great to see more action done to help reduce the greenhouse gases, and instead of like talking, mainly planting trees to consolidate land and stop erosion, and to reduce plastic use, and try to help the environment much more than talking about it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also think that it's important to create petitions and DCC submissions that would go straight to the people in charge, to let them know that there is a crisis and that it isn't just a one-time thing, like it's really consistent.
Yeah, I
So that-
definitely.
Ash?
Yeah, I definitely agree with those points. Those are both super awesome points. Definitely looking at needing to do a lot more action, especially right now. Being able to do all that much actions during that time, but of course, and still, I completely agree with the consistent point. I also feel as though it's not too consistent, I guess, in the way that we approach kind of talking to like our government and politicians and stuff like that.
Sorry, I'm just
Sweet,
reading the comment.
So
Go
this
ahead.
question, this panelist chat here, just said talks about our parliament, and our parliaments, what kind of criticism they've received, I guess, and our kind of local councils in our areas and stuff like that. How have they been kind of taking our actions, and what do we think of them? So who wants to go first?
Also, I know as far as the burning of fossil fuels go, still a lot of our heating is done through burning coal. I think less is done through burning diesel. Diesel is worse for the environment than coal, although they're both pretty bad. And so there's definitely some individual lobbying for that. We also have Coal Action Network Aotearoa, which works specifically with to do with coal, and working with the government to move that away, I think, although I'm not a part of that. So there are movements being done in that respect, yes.
Yeah. And I also know the likes of schools that is still using coal boilers. There's a movement, kind of like a campaign against that as well that's happening currently, which is looking super cool. As far as the
You're muted, Ash.
controversial opinion, because parliaments can always improve, but I think if we're comparing it to some other countries, our parliament has been pretty good on the environmental-ish scale. Of course, they've made some really stupid decisions in our view, to us, but of course, with the end of like the zero carbon bill, the technology prime minister has come out and declare emergency on that. I think that's really good for us. And as far as councils, I mean, my council's not the best with it, but we're working on it. You get there. It's like chipping away. Sometimes it's just what you got to do. I guess it's more, these kind of groups have more of an economic kind of look at things, or more of a, will this benefit us in this way, in like the short term, I guess, more than the long term. So it's kind of just explaining to him, like, look, this is going to be not only good for the environment, but it's going to be better for our whole country and everyone in the long term as well. That kind.
And in most cases, moving to sustainable alternatives is better for economics in the long run. Tilly, did you have any elaboration on that?
No, I don't really have anything to say on that point, but yeah, I definitely think our government really kind of supports, almost not supports, but like encourages youth voices, and there's heaps of like youth organizations all around the country that are really kind of uplifted by different like the media and stuff. And yeah, I think we're on the right track. Yeah. Does anyone else have anything to add on to that point?
Yeah, I think our parliament's doing really good with like the environment, and I think Jacinda Ardern has really helped with it, and how she got rid of the single-use plastic bags in shops, which was really good for the environment. Yeah.
To ask then, you, Nora, and Logie, what do you think about, we touched on this briefly at the very start of this Zoom, but what do you think about us being like an island nation, and how that affects our relationship to the sea, but also our relationship to the earth as a whole? We kind of talked about that a little bit briefly at the start. I'm just wondering what your relationships are.
I think that New Zealand being an island nation, I think it strengthens the relationship, and how much talk and discussion is going on in regards to the relationship to land and sea. I don't know about the actions that are being taken, or whether that talking actually goes into being actions, but I do know that there's a lot of, like, there's definitely more organizations that there would be in other countries, say where I originally come from in Egypt, like where I as a person until recently did not have any idea about what a relationship with land or sea was like, because of my background or my culture. People don't really talk about it that much. And also it's really interesting to see how different it is to discuss climate change, say in areas like New Zealand, than it is to discuss it in areas like Egypt, because of the economy. First of all, like here it is way more developed, and so there's, I guess, less problems that arise and that are more important to talk about than climate change. And it is a really huge problem, and it's impacting everybody, but the people themselves, they don't recognize that. They think that, say, poverty is way more important to talk about, and they think that the politics just the politicians and the amount of crimes that's going on at the moment is way more important to talk about. So it isn't really discussed as much, and so you don't really get a discussion about their relationship to land and sea. So when I came here, I definitely see that there's a really strong relationship. I don't know if that relationship, if people take care enough to put it into action, but I think there is. That's just my point of view on it.
Just as a brief moment of clarification after that, Logie is an immigrant from Egypt. Just to say that quickly. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, yeah, I forgot to mention that.
Yeah, I definitely
Personal connection. Sorry.
like with having like the Tasman Sea on one side, the Pacific Ocean on the other, you're like always surrounded by it, and you notice things like when there's plastic or anything, and being so small, everything's so connected, and it's like a big web. When one thing happens, everything, like a domino effect. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really significant. And I know we've talked a little bit about the islandy stuff already. Just out of curiosity, Logie specifically, how does it compare to your previous continent dwellings, and even just everyday environment of how you interact with the space around you and with your wildlife or plants and just outdoor experience? Like, what's the difference like, and what? Just out
I
of
guess the
curiosity.
biggest difference is that no one would ask that question, or that wouldn't even be a discussion, because people don't really think about that. It's not really something that people take into account. And I guess the biggest example of that would be that we don't really have a good rubbish system. Like, for example, things that would be taken for granted here in the city centre, for example, is when you go out and you see those rubbish bins that are plastic, glass, and just normal rubbish. We don't have that, and it's really common for people to, in most areas, to just chuck the rubbish on the floor, and it's not really good. And I personally didn't live in a place like that, but in at least 20 or 30% of the country that's the case. And people who come from poorer areas, and to just put it into perspective, there's 100 million people, and a lot of those people, I don't know the exact percentage anymore, but a lot of those people live in poverty. So it's not a discussion that could be brought up without people really telling you that you're being insensitive almost, which I don't agree with, but that's really the case over there. It's you're disregarding the bigger problem that they don't even have adequate living conditions to start caring about their outdoor life. But for me as a person, I know my family cared a lot about what like where we put our rubbish and how we recycled, but I know a lot of people did not have that privilege of even trying to consider their relationship with the outdoor life, because they simply did not have one. So yeah, did that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So yeah, sorry. We also have another question for Logie. You in our chat, so it just says, you mentioned that you're very into the aspect of environmental inequality. Could you elaborate on what this means and why this issue isn't really talked about?
So I recognize I started learning about that this year when I was a part of the Science Journeys exhibition that talks about climate change and inequality. And what it is in 2016, 87.5% of greenhouse gas emissions in New Zealand was produced by energy companies. But I feel like when the media, or when you see it on the news, there's a lot of pressure on individuals to start changing their lifestyle. And while I do support that, and I do support people being more aware and trying to change their lifestyle to be more environmentally friendly, I think that it's also the most action that needs to be taken for there to be a really big difference to be made is the action that should be taken by those bigger corporations of energy companies or fossil fuel companies, oil companies. And you don't see it on the media at all, because there's this really there's a really big idea of just unspoken capitalism that the media doesn't really want to discuss, because that would mean criticizing a lot of people that may sponsor those news channels. So that's why I think it's not talked about as much. But there's inequality in the way that like we proportion it, even though those individuals might not cause the most greenhouse gas emissions in New Zealand, for example, we put most of the blame on them. And so I do think that it's important that people recycle, that they change their lifestyle to be more eco-friendly. But I also do think that it's really important for people to acknowledge that we are not the biggest problem. So yeah.
I completely agree. It's you're in a position, you're in a very fortunate position if you can actually make changes to your own lifestyle to become more environmentally friendly. As a society, we put too much pressure on the individual to make those changes alone in a system that doesn't really account for it. So there's a lot of criminalization on the individual for something that's not really their fault, but it's more the system that they dwell in.
Yeah, totally agree with that.
Just
same. Sorry, you go.
No, go.
I would say in kind of like a bigger respect, I guess there's also the kind of inequality for like by country. I guess in New Zealand we work a lot with the likes of different cultural groups like Pacific Climate Warriors, and their kind of view on it is like the country is like the way that climate change is going right now. Ocean levels are rising and the country is soon going to be like gone if we carry on the way that we're going. So I guess there's also in that respect of people not kind of paying attention to other different cultures' needs with climate change. It's actually a really scary issue from them. They're losing their homes. Like a lot of people already lost their homes. It could happen to New Zealand soon as well. Seeing some rising, which is super scary, and also definitely on the economic one, I completely agree. People who are in poverty, they can't afford to like go completely vegan. It's not really an option for them because it's like fresh vegetables are just expensive. It's how it is. So it really, I completely agree that more pressure needs to be put on big corporations as well, because they're the ones who can really make the emissions lower, make the biggest change.
Yeah, I do agree with that. And just touching off about people losing their homes in New Zealand, it's already happening in South Dunedin. Like I know earlier last year when I was when my family and I were looking at homes for purchase, there was just a lot of talk about not going to buy any houses in South Dunedin because it is sinking in some areas. I know some of my friends who had houses in South Dunedin had to move out because of flooding. It's really easy to get flooded, and it's it's not the ideal living place. So I think it's already happening in New Zealand. It's just not enough talk and action is being taken towards the issue.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with it. And I think it's very important to think about how we can help the environment ourselves before thinking that others should do it for us. So we could take the step to do things ourselves that it could impact the environment. Like for example, recycling, reducing your single waste and like plastics. And also I go vegetarian because it's really healthy for reducing the greenhouse gases in the world, and it's much better because going vegetarian, it means that less water is used for like the meat industry and things, and it's much healthier for the environment and not as much like large amounts of animals on one area of land. It's much healthier for like the world. And yeah.
So what drives you specifically, Nora, to attend strikes and to do these broader things outside just individual lifestyle choices, like going vegetarian? Me too, by the way. Is so like to do these bigger things, pushing for systemic change outside just the individual lifestyle choices that
Yeah.
you can make?
Yeah, I think it's good to do things to help the environment because New Zealand has such beautiful nature and animals and plants, and it's only right to do so and to make an impact that can help the environment. And if you take one step to help, then you can teach others. And if everyone tries to do a little to help the world, it'll be a better place. And I think that it's very important to have strong viewpoints about taking care of the environment and making change and going to strikes, but mainly doing things to help the environment. That that is good because it'll help our world be healthier and better for the many generations ahead, and to reduce the greenhouse gases. And it's better for the future because after us there'll be many generations, and if we leave our earth on which is cleaner and healthier, it'll be much better in the future than now, when like there's so many bushfires in the Amazon rainforest and in Australia, and all these polluted water and like the ice caps melting. It's good if we try to reverse this and to bring change before it gets even worse. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's something that there's things that we can all agree with.
Yeah, and by like taking those little individual steps, you're kind of like showing that you are willing to make those changes and that you're concerned for this future. And I guess it kind of just reiterates the fact, and like by going to the strikes and everything, that we are wanting change, and that it is like we're raising our voices and we're taking these actions for then the government to make those systemic changes, for the big energy companies and the big corporate companies to clean up their act as well, if we're the ones starting those changes.
Yeah, and kind of in the face of all those people who I was once told that you're fighting for this change, except you're not actually willing to compromise. And so yeah, I think that's important to show that. How much time do we have left?
Do you guys have just a little bit more time? If you guys have anything to add to this conversation, that was really cool to listen to all of the things that you guys all have to say. You're all so young and so passionate, and so just you speak with such heart. It's just awesome to listen to because it really is infectious, and I'm sure I speak for myself and many of, if not all of the people who are right now, that we feel all of the love that you have for our planet. So if you guys have any final sentiments or anything, you can go ahead.
I think first of all, it's important for us to say thank you for the 2 youth that came on to the live stream with us. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your views. Also thank you for the World Oceans Day project that is running this, and to our awesome hosts and co-hosts that are on right now. Thank you for inviting us to be on. We super enjoyed this opportunity. Yeah. Does anyone else have any?
I have a final question, just kind of also to leave you pondering, is what would you want future generations or youth today, but also to know? Did I drop out?
Yeah.
Very anticlimactic. Now, what would you want youth today, but also the future, to know and to be aware of and to think of?
I think a good kind of overall answer there would just be just respect. I think respect and care is honestly the most important 2 things that you can have in a person. If you respect everyone and everything, and if you care about things, then you'll be a good person, and I think the world will be much better off, because I think a lot of any issue that has ever come up in human history, I think, has kind of been a lack of respect for other people, a lack of respect for the environment, lack of respect for this or that. But yeah.
Yeah, I think if you've got that passion, then find a way to outlet that passion, whether it be joining an organization like protecting our oceans, or fighting the climate crisis, or protecting the ice glaciers, or whatever it is. Just join it and be active and help spread awareness and make change.
I 100% agree with all of that stuff. You guys are all amazing human beings. Thank you all again so much for joining us. I hope you enjoy the rest of your mornings, evenings, afternoons. I'm not sure what time it is over in New Zealand right now, but thank you guys very much for joining us.